You know that's someone who always has to be right, not someone who's often right. That's different. That's just competence. I mean, someone for whom being right isn't the outcome of a conversation. It's the whole point of it. Every discussion becomes a small contest. Every disagreement has to resolve in their favor before anyone can move on. And the tell isn't that they argue. The tell is what happens when the stakes are nothing, when it genuinely doesn't matter, when the restaurant closed in either 2019 or 2020 and no one on earth cares, and they still won't let it go. That's when you realize you're not watching someone who cares about accuracy. You're watching someone who needs something else, and the rightness is how they get it. So what is it? What are they actually after? Let me clear away the easy answer first. The easy answer is arrogance. They think they're smarter than you, and winning is how they prove it. That doesn't survive contact with the evidence, because genuinely arrogant people are often fine being wrong about small things. It costs them nothing. They're secure enough in the larger self-assessment that a wrong restaurant date doesn't dent anything. The person who can't let go of the restaurant date isn't sitting on a surplus of certainty. They're running low. Here's what I think is actually happening. For most of us, being right is information. You wanted to know a thing, now you know it, good. For this type of person, being right has become evidence. Evidence in an ongoing case about who they are. And here's the thing about running your self-worth as a court case. The verdict never comes. There's no moment where you've submitted enough evidence and the case closes, and you get to stop. Every new disagreement reopens it. So they're not trying to win the argument. They're trying to win the case. And the case is never over. That's why the stakes don't matter. In a court case, small evidence still counts. A trivial point still goes in the column. If your sense of self is assembled out of accumulated correctness, then no correction is trivial because every correction is a point for the other side. You're thinking it's just a restaurant. They're experiencing another piece of evidence that I don't know things. And this explains the part that's hardest to be around. You've probably noticed that being right doesn't seem to satisfy them. They win the point, and there's no relief. They're already on to the next one. They're looking at Google, searching through past conversations, emailing and texting the same conversation days later. That's what tells you that it's not about the point. If rightness were information, getting it would settle something. But evidence in an endless case doesn't settle anything. It just gets you to the next hearing, which is why the need doesn't diminish with each win. It renews. There's a real cost in this, and it isn't only paid by the people around them. Someone in this position can't learn easily because learning requires a moment of not knowing. And not knowing is exactly the state they can't tolerate. Every opportunity to find out they were wrong, which is to say every opportunity to find out something new, arrives as a threat first. They've traded the ability to be corrected for the feeling of being certain. And that's a bad trade. It's just a slow one. Now, I want to be careful here because it would be easy to walk away from this with a diagnosis to hand to somebody. So let me ask a narrower question. Not do you do this? You probably don't. Not the way I've described it. But instead, where is your courtroom? Because most of us have one. Some domain where being right isn't just information. Where a correction doesn't land as good, now I know. It lands as evidence. Where you notice you're still constructing the rebuttal 3 hours later. Still replaying the conversation in your mind, looking for the failure point. For some people, it's their work, their expertise. For some, it's parenting. For many, it's politics. or their take on their own family, the areas where they've quietly staked their competence. And the way you find it in yourself isn't by asking where you're stubborn. It's by asking, where does being wrong cost me more than the facts are really worth? That's your courtroom. That's where the same machinery is running, just narrower and quieter and easier to justify. I don't think the goal is to never care about being right. Caring about being right is most of how anyone learns anything. The goal is to notice when rightness has stopped being information and started becoming evidence. Those feel identical from the inside. That's the whole difficulty. The people who seem least anxious about being right usually aren't the ones who stopped caring. They're the ones who found somewhere else to stand, some sense of themselves that isn't assembled point by point out of being correct. That's the harder question underneath this one. Not why do they need to be right, but what any of us are actually standing on when the argument goes against us.